All right. So today I have the real honor and pleasure of having Julie Ryan here today. Hello, Julie. How
Hi,
are you?
girl. I'm so delighted to be with you.
Yeah, you look amazing. You look like a $1 million woman. You look absolutely
Oh,
stunning.
if
Mm.
you only knew, our house is having a lot of construction done, and I feel like I'm living inside a snow globe because of all the construction dust everywhere. And but it's all good. So, I
Mm.
we are all sometimes like the swans on the water, right? We look good on
Right.
top, and underneath we're just paddling like crazy.
Yeah.
So
Where are you in the world?
I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, in the US.
Fantastic.
So that's the southeastern part of the US. We border the Gulf of Mexico. We're next to Florida and Georgia. So here we refer to that part of the country as the Deep South. And I absolutely love it.
Sounds lovely. All right, Julie. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself? Who are you?
Sure. I'm a businesswoman and an inventor who learned how to do woo woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness.
Wow.
How's that for
That's
a
brilliant. Let's start
description?
with a woohoo. I love that.
The woo
What
woo.
happened there? How was your did you find out very early on in your childhood that you had the psychic abilities?
No, I learned how to do all this stuff, Bev. I was not one of those psychics that had dead people chasing her since childhood, or if I did, I didn't know it, let alone what I would have done with that information. No, I'm a businesswoman. I've founded 9 companies in 5 industries, and I am an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world. So, how this all came about was about 30 years ago, I had a girlfriend give me a book for my birthday called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mays. And she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, what the heck is that? I'd never heard that term before. And I, at the time, was in the hospital supply industry. I was helping people heal, but by inventing and manufacturing devices. And early in my career, when I first got out of school, I was selling them and then started my first company at 25. So I was always interested in medical stuff. And I thought, okay, I need to find out more. So I went to the bookstore because we didn't have the internet yet. We live and die by the internet, and I think, oh my gosh, we didn't have the internet when all this stuff happened in the world, and oh my gosh, life went on. But anyways, I went to a bookstore and I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. And she was a NASA physicist. She was a rocket scientist, literally, who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable English for the non scientific mind. That would be me. And taught people how to do energy healing. And so I was just compelled to then, after I read her book, I called her school and I said, do you guys have anybody teaching this stuff in my area? And lo and behold, they did. So I learned from a student of hers, a graduate of her program, and I studied with her for 6 years and did the equivalent of what I would do in any graduate level program and paid the equivalent of an MD or a PhD and learned how to be a medical intuitive and psychic medium. And now I teach people all over the world how to do this. Actually, we have a class coming up in the first weekend of November in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta is the busiest airport in the world. You can get there from anywhere. And it'll be our 20th class, Viv, but it's the first one I've taught in person.
Wow.
And we actually have people coming in from the Netherlands
Oh,
and
how cool.
elsewhere in Europe and also all over America. And you'll learn how
Brilliant.
to do all the stuff that I do, which is in a weekend, actually. And it's super easy. Everybody has the ability, and it's so much fun. We help people heal themselves. And I believe the work that I do is part of the healing equation. But once we connect with spirit, we can do it all. We can talk to deceased loved ones. We can talk to any spirit, whether they're attached to a body or not, whether we knew them or not is irrelevant. We can talk to pets live. We can do past life stuff. We can tell how close to death somebody is. We can do what else? Remote viewing. I do remote viewing a lot when somebody's in surgery, having an operation. I can't be in the surgical room, and tell them how many surgeons are in there, what are they doing, where are they in the procedure, who the angels are and the spirits of deceased loved ones are that surround them. So once we connect with spirit, you can do it all. And everybody has the ability, and everybody's doing it, whether they realize it or not.
Wow, it's amazing. And how was your first encounter with spirit? What did that journey or experience look like?
Oh, great question. I haven't been asked that before, actually. Out of all these chats that I've had, my first connection was spirit when I was in class. Let's go that way, because I don't know about when I was a kid. I don't remember having any. When I was in class, I think primarily because I was interested in the medical healing stuff, I started seeing colors and I started seeing lines. It reminded me of an architectural drawing where it's done in blue for a building or a home. And I would see it was like a grid of the body. And then that went into seeing actual body parts. Like I see livers and kidneys and ovaries and brains and bones and stuff like that. So that's how it started. And then the more I did it, the more it went into being able to communicate with spirit telepathically. And actually, by seeing that stuff, I was getting communication from spirit, but I didn't really realize it yet. I just knew I was seeing in my mind's eye things. And then it develops very quickly. Like I said, I teach people how to do it over a weekend.
Mm. And having this ability, the psychic ability, has helped you enormously in your business life and as an inventor as well. So would you please tell me a little bit about that as an inventor, when I suppose you get downloads, right? From spirit?
I do, but I didn't know woo-woo yet when I started all my companies and my inventing. I didn't know how to do these skills yet. So I think that's a great example of, yes, I was getting information. I didn't know it was coming from spirit. I thought it was just an idea in my head. And now I understand, Viv, that our heads are big satellite dishes and they receive and they transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all their lifetimes. Every thought has a frequency as well. And they're broadcast on something similar to a radio or TV channel, even a satellite station. You're listening to the radio and you're listening to classic rock on 102.5 and you're listening to country music on 97.3. Well, that's the frequency, that's the megahertz frequency on which that music's being broadcast. So when we think of something, we'll have a thought come in. Remember, all thoughts originate outside of our heads. Nobody's ever had an original thought. We've just tuned into that channel, which I think I'm a great example of that because I have a communication degree from university. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. Well, how does a girl with a communications degree invent surgical devices? I was thinking about what the need was, and then I was getting information because I was on that channel, having absolutely no clue that what I was doing was spiritual because I hadn't learned how to do it yet. It's just innate. We all do it naturally.
And how did that journey look like when your first invention? What was that, and how did you sort of bring it from an idea into reality?
It's an auto transfusion device for total joint surgery, which distilled down means when somebody gets a new joint, the bones bleed. And so my device, which is disposable, collects the blood that the bones bleed. There's a drain that's put in around the new joint, and that blood is collected. And then when the container is full, we put a filter on it, we turn it upside down, and we reinfuse the blood, the patient's own whole blood, back into their bodies. And so they're not using somebody else's blood, number one. Number two, they're getting whole blood. Most of the time when somebody gets blood in the hospital, it's packed red cells. They're not getting the plasma and the platelets and all those other goodies. So what we found was that people healed much faster and more completely. And most people getting total joint surgery are older. And so it really helped them heal. And that's been sold for 30 years, Viv, around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it still
And
is. Unfortunately, the patents have expired. Here, they only last for about 20 years, but what a blessing. And so, yeah,
how old were you then? Was that when
I
you
was
were
in my 20s. I was
20s?
in my
Wow.
20s.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's very, very impressive. You must have had, I mean, it's a very advanced medical equipment, right? And you're in your 20s coming up with this.
But that's my point is I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, okay, it was right when the AIDS scare was happening in the 80s and people were getting contaminated blood. And so people were so afraid. And there was a device being used for vascular surgery. And so I had some orthopedic surgeons who I knew who said, can we use this for total joint? And I said, I don't know. And so that's how it all began. I think that the windows are open. We just have to choose to run through them. And then all the people that we need to show up always show up exactly at the right time. And that's been my whole life, continues to do it. It's happened so much over my lifetime that I just expect it. And that's what I get. I just trust that the people are gonna show up, and they do right at the perfect time.
Have you done a healing journey? Have you been on this awakening journey yourself?
You mean from being ill?
Or just
Eh,
having like a healing, a spiritual awakening? Have you experienced that?
As I've learned this stuff, I've gotten to see in my mind's eye amazing healings with clients and family members and people that I love. But, did I go through a near death experience or have some awful illness that I recovered from? No. It's just always been something that's been interesting to me as far as healing the body. And this, I believe, is complementary. This energy healing that I do is complementary to Eastern and Western medicine as we know it. And again, nobody heals anybody else. If you think about somebody having surgery, at the end of the procedure, the surgeon's going to close the incision with sutures and staples. Well, the surgeon doesn't make that patient's skin grow back. The patient makes their own skin grow back. The patient always heals themselves. We always heal ourselves. Any medical provider, any energy healer, any chiropractor, acupuncturist, shaman, whatever, is always contributing to the healing to help that person heal themselves.
Mm. Where do you think we are in medicine in the future in terms of energy healing?
It's becoming more interesting to medical providers. I have several doctors who've taken my class. I have lots of professors from different walks of study and many nursing professors. Reiki healing is taught in some nursing schools, it's a really good place to start. It's elementary. And then the healing that I teach, I consider to be postdoctoral level. And you got to start somewhere, right? And I've given talks to groups of new medical students at a university close by, which is fun. So I think that they're starting to get it. I have many medical providers, nurses, and other providers that have taken my class. A lot of end of life doulas, death doulas, hospice nurses, because they witness this stuff. Like they witness that the person who's dying is seeing their deceased loved ones, spirits who are in the room with them, and they're able to converse with them. And I talk about that in my Angelic Attendance book. And actually, university-based research shows that 90% of people at the end of their lives see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets, either in dreams or visions. 90%. And you talk to any end of life provider, whether it be somebody in hospice or somebody that works in intensive care or cardiac care or the emergency department, same thing. They all have witnessed that, but it's just not something that people usually, it's not normal dinner conversation, but it's so comforting to the family and even to the person at the end of their lives, because a lot of people are afraid to die because they're afraid that they're going to go to hell, because that's what they've learned in their religions or cultures. And hell doesn't exist. Everybody goes to heaven.
Yeah. Now, do you know from an economic viewpoint what an impact it would have to use more energy healing in the medicine field?
I don't think anybody's studied that, but another great question. I don't know how it would impact. I don't know that it's quantifiable at this point, because I don't think there are as many people doing it that would be needed in order to really come up with a study on that. But certainly I've done tens of thousands of medical healings over the years, and things that are just wild, Viv, like using stem cell energy to regenerate new organs. It's a diseased kidney, a diseased liver, and they show up on subsequent scans. And the doctor will call me sometimes and say, "What the heck are you doing? How does this work?" New spleens, new ovaries, new whatever. 2 clients so far that had infertility issues. We redid their ovaries, all with new DNA. They were in their early 40s. Both of them got pregnant. One's already had her baby. The other one's about ready to have her baby. And I see all these new eggs, and it's all their DNA in there. And so it's just phenomenal, the opportunities. Many clients who've had healings. Again, I send the energetic healing. It's spirit working through me and with me. I'm not doing it. I'm facilitating them healing themselves. And so once that happens, then they're able to go on. But many times I just had somebody recently who called into my live. I do a monthly live on the 4th Tuesday of the month. And she said, "I worked with you a few months ago. I was scheduled for surgery. We went in for another scan before my surgery was to happen. And whatever the problem was, wasn't needed anymore. So we called off the surgery." And the surgeon's just kind of scratching his head going, "Huh? How's that work?" So I think that I believe it will be something that will be quantifiable, hopefully in my lifetime. But the university-based research on people at the end of their lives being able to see their deceased loved ones, that research is recent. It's only been in the past 3 or 4 years where that's happened. And so medicine is very slow to change.
And I'm thinking with energy healing and longevity, will we be able to live longer lives by undertaking healing on a regular basis, you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And there's all kinds of research out about that, about people who are depressed, have way more illnesses, live shorter lives, that kind of thing. People who are happy and energetic and involved in their lives have way less medical issues. And I believe that the energy healing, people ask me, they'll say, "Well, when you work with clients, whether it be somebody who has a loved one who's dying, or we're doing a past life thing," which is really fun, by the way, or medical, or talking to somebody's cat or dog or something, "doesn't it wear you out?" And I say, "No, it's the exact opposite. I'm jazzed by the end of the day." And so, no, it energizes me, because
as you get healing, as you give healing, you also receive healing for yourself.
well, I'm playing in the same vibration. It's a super high vibration. So it benefits my body as well in doing that. And the other thing that's so interesting is joy is a high vibration, right? Love, joy, fun, all that stuff is a high vibration. When we're in a low vibration, it's not good for the body, and it's not good for somebody's psyche either.
So, right. Okay, so what has been your most difficult experience as a female entrepreneur?
Oh, great question. You have all these great questions, Miss Feb. Let's see. What's been my most difficult experience as an entrepreneur? I would say
Female entrepreneur.
as a female entrepreneur, Uh, oh, early in my career, when I worked for another company, I had, you know, bosses hitting on me, which was nonsense. I don't know of any woman that's my age or older and even younger. I mean, you know, the whole Me Too thing that's been going on since the beginning of time. So had a customer when I was in my early 20s that was really awful and treated me like an indentured servant because I was female. But one of my best times as a female entrepreneur was, and this was after, again, I started my first company at 25. I had a company that I was representing their products, and they breached my contract because we did so well that they went with a global supplier. Well, fine. So pay me off. You know, we got this contract in place. And they didn't, and they were just blowing me off. And so I sued them. And it was a $30 billion company that I sued. I wasn't 30 yet. And I spent 10 days in federal court in Boston, Massachusetts here. And I walked into court and they had 5 attorneys there. And I had my attorney. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And I thought, boys, you know, I'm young, I'm a girl, and I even have blonde hair, but you have seriously underestimated me. So we won the lawsuit. I got a really big settlement. I had already started a company to compete with that product that I was suing them about. They had signed with the 4th largest company in the world. I signed with the largest company in the world, and I wasn't even 30 yet. So I licensed my invention to the largest orthopedic global supplier. And, you know, I think they were so in shock that I had the audacity to come after them. And nobody else did, but I did, and then won. So it was, interestingly enough, I was talking to somebody recently, a client last week, who is a lawyer in Boston, and she knew the judge that presided over my case. She was a very famous judge, and I mentioned her name. She goes, "Oh, I knew her back then. She was a powerhouse." I said, "I know." So that was one of my most fabulous moments ever in my life. And then my other most fabulous moment was when we introduced that product. And I have other inventions that I have, but that one was my baby. You know, that was the first one. And that was a lot of labor to get that one into the world. And when we introduced it, and I had licensed the product to a company called Zimmer, which was the biggest global orthopedic company. And we were introducing it at the orthopedic convention, which was global in San Francisco. So I was heading into the convention center, and the big Zimmer semi trucks were parked out front, which was a great ad. And then we walked in, and there was this huge banner, Viv, that was over the main entrance, and it said, "Introducing the Zimmer auto transfusion device." I stood there and I cried. I thought, oh my gosh, you know, because there were probably 10,000 people at that conference. I'm getting weepy just remembering it.
Yeah. And how many people has the invention helped, you know, what a service?
Oh yeah. Millions. Yeah. And interestingly enough, when my own father was having his knee replaced, his surgeon said that his patients didn't bleed. I'm thinking, yeah, right. You know, what are you, a superhero or something? And so he said, "Well, we don't need that. We don't need your device, blah, 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 blah." So anyway, so I talked him into using it, and my dad just did great. And you know, what a joy. Something that I invented helped my own father when he was having his knee replaced. I mean, that's making me weepy too, girl. We got to stop these questions because I will be boo-hooing here. Yeah.
So what is your advice to any female young woman out there who wish to become an entrepreneur?
I think follow where you're led. You're going to have an idea for something, and we go into, well, I can't do that because, and we come up with all these reasons why we can't do something. Well, when you have a thought that comes into your head and it's interesting and you're curious, you want to know more, and it's fun while you're learning more, take the next step. I think that we get held back, Viv, when we try and think too far in the future. And we think, okay, we have to do this and this and this and this and this. And I can't do that and that and that because, I'm young and I don't have the money and whatever. Trust that the people that you need are going to show up exactly when you need them. And the other thing is, when you have a thought, just take one step. Take one step. That may be researching it online. And then how you're led to another website, and then another website, and then another website. Before long, you can't remember how you even got to the website where you currently are. And that's spirit leading you with that. The other thing too is, when we go into feeling stress or feeling a negative thought, anything that feels bad, that's a thought, is based in fear, anger, jealousy, boredom, actual fear, grief. All those things are a low vibration, what we were talking about before, and they're based in fear. What we want to do is we want to be in a high vibration. We want to feel at least neutral, because I always say spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels. When you're feeling bad, spirit can't communicate with you. It's like you're turned to the country music station and they're communicating on the classic music station. You got to raise your vibrational level. The other thing is, from a medical standpoint, when we're in fear, the body doesn't know the difference between a real fear and a fake fear. It just goes into fight or flight, whether we're being chased by somebody, let's say with a gun, or whether we're late for an appointment and we think, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're late for an appointment, it's not going to kill you. Somebody chasing you with a gun might, right? But the body doesn't know the difference. So I've come up with this strategy that I call the 2-minute rule. May I share that?
Awesome. Love it. Bring it on.
Okay. 2-minute rule is, when you have a thought that feels badly, it's based in fear. And so you just ask yourself, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? If the answer is yes, get out of the road before the bus runs you over. If the answer is no, you know that this is a fear that's a fake fear. It's an irrational fear. And you're going to laugh a lot. You're going to think, oh, for heaven's sakes, if I'm late for this meeting, no, it's not going to kill me. But it feels like it is. So what does that do? Number one, that changes the channel. That immediately gets you on a higher vibration. Because what are you doing? You're curious. Curiosity is based in love. It's a high vibration. You're curious when you ask, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? That's number one. Number two, from a physical standpoint, and think about this, it keeps us out of fight or flight. When we're in fight or flight, our adrenaline's flowing, the cortisol levels are high, our heartbeat goes up, we lose clarity in our brain because all the blood's draining from our brain and going to our extremities and our heart so we can run fast. So it keeps the body from being inflamed. What's the number one cause of any kind of disease or illness? Inflammation in the body. So it keeps us calm. The other thing about the 2-minute rule is, it's free and it's convenient. It works anywhere your brain is, and your brain's usually with you wherever you are. So it's convenient. Works great. Actually, I have a book, the 2-minute rule, and it's this little book, and it's whenever you have a thought that feels bad, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? Make it a habit. I don't even think about it anymore. If I have a thought that feels bad, I am immediately in, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? No. Okay. I laugh. I'll move on.
And you've
written so
many.
Great.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And you've written so many books. Which book has been the most popular of all the ones you've written?
Angelic Attendance. I happen to have one right here. I feel like Brilliant. A game show host. The hostesses on the game shows. Angelic Attendance, what really happens as we transition from this life into the next. And it has, can you see that?
Yeah.
Draw it. It has illustrations in it that talk about how the angels and our deceased loved ones surround us as we are at the end of our lives. And it's a configuration I call the 12 phases of transition. And it's how these angels and deceased loved ones change the configuration of how they surround the person who's dying. And so it's been given to people who have a loved one who's dying. It's been given to people who are dying. It's given as something to give to a family who's lost somebody. It's given out at my church to every family that comes in to plan a funeral, and many other churches and synagogues across America. I haven't heard about it being distributed in Europe yet or other parts of the world, but certainly in America, there are tens of thousands of people that have read it. And I have a story how that came about. Do we have time for me to share that real
Yeah.
fast?
I have time. Yeah, I would love to
Okay.
hear. Yeah.
Okay. My mentor, her name's Susan. One day I was in her office. This was many years ago, and she was doing a healing on me. So I'm laying on a massage table face up. I got my head on a pillow and I got a blankie over me and I'm all cozy. And when she does a healing on me, Viv, my deceased loved ones are on either side of the table. Their spirits come in. It's my mom, my dad, my grandmothers, my late
Wow.
little sister, even my dog's spirit, my favorite dog, that spirit's there too. So one day this spirit showed up of this dead Pope. And spirits look to me like a hologram of how they appeared when they lived in that lifetime. So this dead spirit of a Pope shows up, and Susan can see him too, Viv. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, I never heard of a Pope Clement. And he
All
said, well,
right.
I was number 6. I said, oh, okay. How may I help you? Kind of like, why are you here? He laughed and he said, well, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies. And I said, I'm a businesswoman. I'm not doing that. People will think I'm crazy. And he laughed again. And he said, yeah. Just get on with it. He said, because by that point, and I talk about this in the book, my mother had died in 2002. And I had been studying the woo-woo stuff probably for a few years at that point. And I'm seeing these 12 phases of transition happening to my own mother. I'm in the room with her as this is happening. And I'm thinking, whoa, what's happening here? This is amazing. And so I kind of felt like I was on some kind of a teeter-totter because I was distraught because my mother was dying. And on the other point, I'm going, whoa, that's wild. Look at these angels and all this other stuff. So
Wow.
Clement knew that, obviously. And he said, you need to teach the world what happens because everybody's so afraid that they're going to go to hell when they die. And he said, it's total nonsense. Excuse me. And he said, you're supposed to teach the world. Like, yeah, whatever. See you, bye. Not doing it. I get in the car to go home, Viv, and I just for kicks on my phone, I looked up Pope Clement VI. Well, come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague when 2/3 of Europe died. And he's best known for his purse for the dying and his purse for the dead. And I thought, Ryan, you can't make that stuff up. I mean, I never heard of him. And he's in the room telling me I got to teach people. So fast forward a few years, I'm thinking, I'm not doing that. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I got rid of these companies. No.
Yeah.
So we're sitting in church a couple of years later, maybe 3 years later. My husband's on one side, my son's on the other side. The priest from the altar is talking about, wouldn't it be nice if we do that we all go to heaven? And wouldn't it be nice if we knew that angels and our deceased loved ones were there to escort us and were with us as we were dying? And I'm getting elbowed from either side, one from my, husband and one from my son. And I'm thinking, okay, God, really? From the pulpit, you're giving me grief about this? And I thought, oh, for heaven's sakes, literally. So that's how I got into the writing the book. And all these amazing, what I would have thought before I learned woo-woo, all these amazing synchronicities, what I've alluded to with business and life and everything. I mean, my whole life, I met my husband standing behind him in line in the Kansas City, Kansas airport 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Neither one of us lived in that city. So expect the magic to happen, and it does. So that's how it all started, was with the book. And then I was talking to a publisher and they said, well, you need to have a platform. I said, well, what's that? They said, well, like a podcast or something. I thought, well, I don't know how to do that, but I know how to read. So I learned how to do that. And then, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And I've been led every step of the way. And for entrepreneurs, you're led. Every step of the way.
Yeah.
The first chapter in my book is all about my journey as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing that I want to mention to entrepreneurs out there, business plans, there's a lot of uh, um, concentration and effort and spotlight that goes into a business plan. Well, I'm here to tell you, after founding 9 companies, nobody follows a business plan, no matter how big they are, no matter what their revenues are, or no matter how small they are. Business plans are for the lenders and the financiers. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You have of where you want to go, but this whole thing about we have to do this, and this to do it, you're limiting yourself. You want to stay open to how are things going to happen? How are they going to evolve? Because life happens even to the biggest companies around the world. And their business plans are kind of like an idea starter, and they need them for their financial people, their lenders, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get wound up on a business plan.
Yeah.
Just don't get wound up on it. I have one of my dear friends is a entrepreneur, professor emeritus. She's written like 15 books. Her books are used in pretty much every entrepreneur class globally. She's that big of a deal. And she used to say to me, you really need to go get your MBA. And I'd say, I don't want an MBA because I don't want it messing up my brain as an entrepreneur. And she said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, you teach, here's how you do it. I said, I don't want to have a roadmap. I want to let all the magic come to me
Unfold.
because
Yeah.
it unfolds in ways that
Mm-hmm.
you can't even imagine. And when you're focused on it's got to be done a certain way, you limit yourself.
You had to surrender.
Well, surrender with excitement and fun
Mm-hmm.
and joy. Like, ooh, this is cool. What are we going to do next?
Yeah. So true. Love it. Divinely guided.
Oh, yeah, we all are. But most of us
Mm-hmm.
just don't know to listen.
Mm. I usually get an impulse now, and then I go online, and then that person is there, leads me to that one, and then boom.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And that's what makes it fun. And you know, as well as I do, Viv, too, that when we get to the destination, when
Then
we
what?
do whatever, then we're looking for the next thing to
Mm-hmm.
do. And
Mm-hmm.
here's a news flash. I hear this from spirit all the time. When they get to heaven, what are they doing? Well, they're dreaming up what they're going to do in their next life when they reincarnate. So it's all about the journey. It's about the fun. It's about the adventure. Even in heaven, people are the spirits. I can't even tell you, bazillions of them with whom I've communicated over the years will say, heaven's great. You think of something, it immediately materializes. And all of us can't wait to get back to Earth because the experiences that we have on Earth, they don't have in heaven. They think of something and it's immediately happening. So I'm not saying heaven's boring, but they all want to continue to come back to Earth and reincarnate because it makes their spirit expand with all the experiences. If you think about experiences, all of us who are living, all of us who have ever lived, we have one-time experiences. It's the only time this is going to happen where you and I are talking on this day at this time in this medium about this topic. And what that does is it contributes to the collective consciousness of ideas. And then back to all of our heads are satellite dishes. Somebody has an idea, they have a thought, and they're tuning into that channel. And our conversation today from the spiritual side of the equation is on that channel for eternity. And somebody can pull it down, but we're creating it. It's never happened before, will never happen again.
That's
Does
so
that make
cool.
sense? Does
Yes.
that make sense?
So you're
Yeah.
creating stuff all the time on different frequencies, basically, in simple words.
Exactly, with all the things that we go through. And the other thing that's really interesting along these lines too, Viv, is when I work with people on past lives, which is one of my absolute favorite things to do, because oftentimes we can get information that we can corroborate with historic documents online. And I always say, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, there's no way. And so the thing that I'll see is a semblance of a script. We all come in with lots of scripts of things that we want to explore and experience in life. And so I'll see a semblance of a script that will come through, and it will repeat throughout multiple lifetimes, but just from a different perspective. For example, if and I use this analogy all the time. I talk in analogies a lot because it gives our human minds a frame of reference for this woo-woo stuff we're talking about. But think about Hamlet. How many times has Hamlet been performed since Shakespeare wrote it in 1602? Well, who knows? But think about, where was it performed? In what language? In what year? What was happening in the world? Who were the actors? Who was the director? Who was the customer? Who was the set designer? Same script, different perspective each time. So let's say that you were a teacher in many past lives. And this time you're looking at it as a teacher, where you live, in the body that you're in the, all the life experiences, but you're teaching online. Well, online didn't exist in your past lives. So maybe you were in a classroom, maybe you were a corporate teacher, maybe you were a parent who was teaching, maybe you were a dog trainer who was teaching dogs. I mean, who knows? The possibilities are endless. So what I see is spirit will look at different perspectives of a similar script. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think Hamlet's a great example of that.
It's brilliant. So you come back and doing the same work, but in a different environment, depending on where the evolution and development is at on planet
Different
Earth.
Environment, different gender, different culture, different place,
and what kind of
different
lessons you're supposed to
nationality.
learn, karma.
Yeah, I have a different view on karma than others. Karma is us exploring different perspectives of a similar script, like what I just mentioned. I think karma's been bastardized, kind of like what happens when somebody dies. Are you going to fly or are you going to fry? Well, everybody flies, everybody goes to heaven, everybody's escorted to heaven by angels. But the thing about karma is, I think it's gotten bastardized over the millennia in that you better not do this in this life, because boy, in all your next lives, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt and you're going to be suffering in your next life. That's not how it works. The other interesting thing that I've heard just unlimited times from spirit is, in the spirit world, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. Everything's just an experience. So they're looking at something that we're thinking is horrific in our human experience, and it is from a human perspective, but they're saying, oh, wow, wonder what Viv's going to do with this. How's she going to get out of that car that's run off the road and has gone down a valley? What's going to happen? Who's going to come to rescue her? How's she going to create out of this situation? Whereas we look at it, we're mortified. They're watching and they're going, oh, wow, look what she's creating. Back to the one-time creation that goes into the collective consciousness of, okay, she used her nail file to open the lock on the door to get out of the car. And, and then somebody that's in that situation going forward is going, oh, okay, well, maybe I could use a nail file. Thanks, Viv. But they never met you. They never knew that you existed. I'm making this up, obviously.
I love it.
But it's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Now, what has been your biggest fear in your life so far?
My biggest fear?
Yes, your biggest fear.
My biggest fear in my life. Childbirth was right up there. I was giving myself a pep talk going, okay, trillions of women have done this and survived. You can too. So that was a fear. Moving to Los Angeles by myself at the age of 24, never having been there before, not knowing anybody that lived there. I grew up in the Midwest of the US in Ohio. And I thought, that took some golden ovary courage to, move there. And the moving van came with all my stuff. Even my car was on the moving van, the moving truck. And they dropped it all off and unpacked it. And I was standing in my apartment, and I thought, okay, great. Now what? What have I done? Kind of a thing. 11 million people, very brave. What else? there's been fear, especially early on in my career as an entrepreneur, where I didn't know where my next revenue was going to come from, and I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills and pay all the stuff that I needed to pay. I do have a funny story about early on. May I share that?
Yeah, I love to do
Yeah.
it.
I was this was in probably about 1986-ish. I would say 86, 87, something like that. And I was like flat broke. I didn't have any money. And I had started a company and I'd gone through all my savings and was bootstrapping it. And I thought, what am I going to do? I mean, I couldn't, I didn't have money to do anything. I couldn't pay the rent. I couldn't buy groceries, whatever. And I needed toilet tissue. I thought, oh my God, I mean, that's kind of an essential. I'm not going to use leaves. So anyways, so back then I had a gas credit card that I used to fill my car with gasoline, petrol, where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, you know how they have those little stores kind of inside gas stations where
Yeah.
you can buy snacks and things like
Yeah.
that. Well, there was a gas station near my house and I bought gas, filled up my car, and I went in there to check out to pay the bill. They had toilet paper and paper towels and stuff like that. So I bought a package of toilet paper using my gasoline credit card because all my other credit cards were maxed out and I didn't have any cash. And so I was telling somebody about it later. And the following week, it's like the dam broke and all the revenue kept coming in. At that point, it was like
Oh,
I needed to get over that last hump before it happened.
it's so funny that it's so funny. Yeah, it seems to be like that, right?
Yes. So I was telling a friend about it. They said, well, why don't you just take some from a restaurant or like a public bathroom? And I said, well, the thought to steal never occurred to me. I guess I don't have a criminal mind. But my toilet paper, my toilet tissue story is one of my favorites. And it's, yes, very much so. Just never, ever, 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 ever give up.
Mm.
Pivot, go under, go over your obstacles, go around them. Just trust that you're on the right path and use the 2-minute rule to get through the fear. I hadn't come up with the 2-minute rule yet. I just knew that it was coming. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know what the circumstances were going to be, but I always knew that it would work.
It's like the universe is testing you, right? Full on.
Well, I think, yeah, you could say that, but now knowing what I know 40 years later,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the vibrational thing.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in fear, we're at a low vibration.
Yeah.
And when we're in fear, we lose clarity. We can't think right. So now with the 2-minute rule, had I had it then, I would have made it easier. But I believe it's a low vibration versus a high vibration. When we feel badly, we're in fear and we lose clarity. And so we're on that radio station that's broadcasting, oh my gosh, well, if you don't have any money, then you won't be able to pay your rent. If you can't pay your rent, then you're going to be evicted and you're going to be starving and homeless and die on the street. I mean, really? No, but that's where we go. So we want to change the channel and go to, okay, what can I do? What's the solution instead of staying stuck in here's the problem? We want to always think of, okay, what's the solution? But you got to get out of that low vibration, and the 2-minute rule helps you do that.
That's such a simple and easy way to raise your frequency straight away.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Love it. Now, where do you hope we are in 10 years from now in the world? What point from your mission, the work you have done?
Well, Pope Clement, gave me my marching orders to go out and teach the world. That song he used to, it's nice to teach the world to sing. I'm teaching the world about what happens when somebody dies. I think to help alleviate the fear of death and dying. I had somebody send a question into my website, askjulieryan.com. People can submit questions online or call into my show and ask questions. or do a private appointment. And I got a question last night, which I thought was really one that was interesting and that I hadn't heard before. And this gal said, why haven't I heard about the 12 phases of transition from the people in the near-death experience community and in the, the afterlife community and all of that? And
Yeah.
I said, well, I think there is lots of information on what happens with spirit after we're in heaven. And there's lots of experience, lots of information about past lives and about the near-death experience, but not a lot about what happens as we're dying. And that's what people are afraid of. So these research studies that I referenced earlier, that's all pretty new stuff. Those have come out since my book was published in the last 4 or 5 years. And so that's my goal, is to help people not be afraid, not only for themselves, but also for their family members, because we're all going to be there someday. And when we're watching a loved one at the end of their lives, yes, we're grieving the loss of them and we're concerned about them and all of that. But the bottom line is we're thinking, oh, I'm going to be in those shoes someday. And what's going to happen to me? And how does this work? So that's what I'm working on, is getting that information out there to the public. And it's working, actually.
Absolutely beautiful. I love it. And Julie, you are now giving a free audiobook to everyone who listens in today.
Yes. Anybody that wants a free audiobook or digital copy of Angelic Attendants, What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life into the Next, just go to julieryangift.com, JULIERYAN gift, GIFT.com, and just fill out your email and we will send you a free copy. And please feel free to share it with your loved ones and your friends, especially people who have somebody that is nearing the end of their life, or they're in hospice, or or struggling with being afraid to die, because it's a glorious component that we add to what is normally a heart-wrenching experience. So also my children's books, they're darling. There's 4 of them. They're the Angel Messages series. Look at these illustrations.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
they're for little children to explain what happens from a spiritual standpoint, not only about when somebody's dying, but we have angel messages for kids, for dogs, for cats, and for truth, which is the 2-minute rule for little kids. And that works great. And then the 2-minute rule books. So those are all available on my website, askjulieryan.com, as well.
Gorgeous, Julie. Thank you so much for coming today. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's been very, very inspirational, and hearing your work and the mission you have done, and being a female entrepreneur, an inventor, an author, a businesswoman. You nailed it all. Thank you so much.
Oh, my honor. Thanks for having me.